Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Canned Air, your tribute to pop culture. I am Jeremy Colley.
I'm Jack Doherty.
And I'm Randy Hardenbrook.
And joining us today to talk about her graphic novel series, Verse, and to just hang out, find out more about her, we welcome writer and illustrator Sam Beck to the show. Sam, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
Excited to hang out, find out more about you. I have had the opportunity to sit down with Verse and check it out, and damn, it's a good book. So excited to talk about it and find out more about you. But before we do anything, don't forget to find us on Twitter at Canned Air Pod, on Instagram at canned_air, and on TikTok at Canned Air Podcast, and at cannedairpodcast.com. Few ways you can support us: the Patreon tab and the merch tab. I don't need to explain those, pretty self-explanatory. Way for you to give us a few bucks and get something in return. And if you're watching this on YouTube, check out our audio catalog that spans back 10 years, people. I know we're fairly new to the, posting on YouTube bi-weekly or whatever we've been doing lately, but there's a lot more content on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and vice versa. If you've been listening to the audio all these years, we are now on YouTube. We're now trying to get every episode on YouTube, so head over there and check that out. Randy, what am I forgetting?
No matter how you're listening to us, anytime you could give us a rating and review, it helps so much. And a huge shout out to evergreenpodcast.com, the station we are so proud to be a part of.
Yes, we are. Very much so. And with everything being said, let's just say hello to Sam. Sam, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be here chatting about comics and everything else.
So you're up in Toronto, right?
Yeah. Born in Canada. I was actually born in Montreal, moved to Toronto, and have just been here for forever.
What's the weather like over there today?
It's not too bad. It's like spring. I mean, global warming, I don't know. We didn't really have a winter this year. It snowed maybe once.
Yeah, same here.
Same here. Yeah.
Same here. It was funny. It was like beautiful all last week. And then yesterday it was cold and snowing. I was so pissed off.
I was too, to go outside. I had errands to run.
I just walked out the door. What the fuck is this?
I walked out to take my trash out and it was sleeting up at my house. I was like, ow!
Yeah, it stinks. But anywho, enough about the weather. I imagine, with everything you've done in your time, being graphic designer and then moving into comics, doing graphic novels, etc., that you must have been creative from a very young age.
Yeah. I mean, so I feel like this is like a very duh thing, but I've been drawing forever. I always tell folks that, like, even though I have my own series and I write it, I'm always an artist first. And I've worked with a lot of writers in my comics career as well, which has been like a really great way to just learn about the industry while being able to work on my own kind of series at the same time.
Sure. So coming up, what you say you were drawing since you were young, what were you drawing primarily?
So I like to say, like, a lot of the writers I work with get into comics because they love comics. I got into comics because I, first of all, love drawing, but secondly, and most importantly, I was like a teen in the mid 2000s. So I was on DeviantArt and a bunch of like drawing boards and forums where we would just make our own little characters, make them kiss each other, have fun adventures together. Like, that's really where I was drawing and like what I really enjoyed doing, and that, translated into comics.
One day I'm going to make my own characters and have them kiss each other.
Exactly.
The glory days of DeviantArt.
Right? Is that still a thing? I think it's still around, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is. And the really funny thing is, one of my first comic gigs was because someone found me on DeviantArt. And this was in like 2018. So I guess people are still using it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're still fairly new to the game. I'm sorry. What'd you say, Jack?
We've had a few creators that's where they found their artist was fishing around on DeviantArt before.
Was that it?
We've had artists on before. Thanks, Jack.
Oh my God. So you mentioned comics that you were, you'd gotten into. Like, was it just gotten into like creating, or did you read comics?
Yeah, so I mean, I do read comics, but like Like truly, I started like drawing and like being into comics because I like drawing. But the kind of comics I was really into growing up as a teen, and even now, was a lot of manga. So like Naruto and Sailor Moon and stuff like that. I remember one of like the first like anime series I really got into was Gundam Wing, which aired on Teletoon. It's like the Cartoon Network of Canada.
Right.
Being up like late at like 11 p.m. watching Gundam Wing, because why not? It was like kind of my first like exposure to like a more adult comic or an adult like series.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, Gundam Wing is awesome.
I never saw
I
it.
love
Was
Gundam Wing.
Was it a what was I about to ask? Was it more aimed toward adults, or I always thought it was just a kid show?
I
Never
mean,
seen it.
they're like at war, I guess. There's war, there's fighting, but like the characters themselves are teenagers, which is really funny because recently I looked up, like I was talking to someone about Gundam Wing, looked up the ages of these characters, and they're like 15. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
These are children.
Yeah,
I swear
lot of
they were
them are
like
doing
20
war
when I
crimes.
was watching.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, a lot of the Gundam series, like they all deal with like war and like children of war, and some are a lot more graphic than others. Gundam Wing was kind of like the mid-range.
Mhm.
I got started like that too. I was with Sam, and then I tried to go back and watch the original Gundam series, and it freaking bored the hell out of me.
Really? There's that much of a difference?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's just, well, I think the original Gundam series was early 70s, and Gundam
Yeah.
Wing was like
What?
mid 90s. Yeah, it's been around a while.
I didn't
didn't know
realize that.
It's me either, yeah. I just
Wasn't
like
it around the same
robots.
time? Wasn't that around the same time Dragon Ball came to be, or am I wrong about that?
Dragon Ball, I think, was the late 80s, and then 90s was Dragon Ball Z, or
That
could
sounds
be,
about
I
right.
could be off on that.
What the hell do I
Could-
know?
Well, like in the mid 90s is when like Toonami, like, and probably the same with what Sam saw, like brought like Sailor Moon, Gundam Wing, Dragon Ball Z, like all those. It was kind of like a big kind of boom right there, and
This
that's
is-
kind of
Yeah.
where,
Go ahead.
and that's kind of where
I
I
was
got
gonna say-
exposed.
I meant the lady.
Yeah, and
Randy.
it's the
Sorry.
you had the really like bad like English dubs that you would watch, and you didn't know any better, so you're like, this is amazing, fantastic, and then like 10 years later you watch it in the original language and you're like, oh, this is
Hey,
much better.
those are still so much. Those dubs are still so much better than freaking Speed Racer, though.
Oh God, yeah.
Almost anything's better than that, right?
Yeah.
Man, I wish I would have known it was about that. I always just saw a bunch of Megazords. I just assumed they were fighting each other in Gundam. You know what I mean? They just all looked like Power Ranger Megazords. But a little cooler. I mean, I got to admit, they looked pretty badass.
They want you to think it's about like the cool Gundams fighting, but really it's about the teen angst that goes on outside of it, which is what I was drawn to and what all my comics have evolved into.
Teen angst, man. I can think of so many. Oh, how about the band Korn? That's what I was into during my period. What about you, Jack?
That was the same, yeah.
Yeah.
Corn, Limp Biscuit, all that, yeah.
Like my long hair, my baggy jeans, my Adidas shoes, and these chains will really let people know how I feel deep down inside.
Fight the
That's
system.
exactly it.
Oh, shit. Anyway. So before you became a comic creator, you were a graphic designer, or maybe you still are, I'm not sure. But can you talk about, getting into graphic design and what you were doing?
Yeah, so when I graduated high school, like I basically did not have the smarts to do like anything in math or science, bad grades. So I'm like, okay, let me apply to graphic design. My parents won't disown me immediately, as opposed to applying to like fine arts or illustration. And thankfully, I got into a graphic design program, and I really enjoyed it. I really fell in love with just the artistry of it, and like commercial arts in general, I think are kind of forgotten about when we talk about like art history and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed doing it. And out of university, one of my first jobs was like then designing mobile apps for banks and stuff. So really like
Wow.
being excited about like the cool commercial arts and stuff, and then designing stuff for banks, which was less fun. Did that for about 6 or 7 years, and like one day I told my boyfriend at the time, like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to basically quit my job. I've saved up enough money to kind of go at doing comics and freelance art for about a year. If it works, fantastic. If it doesn't, I can always find another job designing mobile applications.
Right. Boy, that had to have been a scary leap, though. I mean, as bad as you wanted out and wanted to make comics, I bet that was quite frightening.
It didn't seem frightening to me, but to my family, it was
Okay.
very shocking.
Well, you knew you were going to do it. There was no like option.
Yeah.
Failure wasn't an option. So that's why you weren't scared. That's awesome, though.
Yeah, it was kind of going into it with a safety net of like having stuff saved up and giving yourself a time frame to do it. Which maybe doesn't sound the most like romantic. Like some people are like, oh, we're gonna like do it no matter what, even if we're, living in the gutter. But I'm like, I want to be able to enjoy my life. Like I have enough for a year. I'll see where it goes. And if it doesn't, then you can always kind of, design stuff during the day and keep drawing comics at night. There's like a way to do it both still.
Sure.
But yeah.
So being a graphic artist, do you do a lot of your drawing and stuff digitally, or do you do pen and paper still?
Yeah, so I do like my verse series is all done digitally. All my comics now are done digitally. One of my first gigs was for a comic called Songs of the Necromancer. It was written by a couple in Toronto called Mike Heron and Andrea Fort. And that I actually drew with like pen and ink, scanned it in, colored it digitally. And I did that for about 2 or 3 issues before I was just like, this is so hard. This is taking up so much time. Like I said, I had been like drawing on like forums and stuff online before that anyway. So I just went back to doing that. I think in my mind, I was like, oh, to be like a true comic artist, I need to be like doing pen to ink,
paper. Yeah.
pen and paper, which like fantastic. Like I have so much respect for people that do that because I know how much work it is, but it's a slow and like time consuming process.
Sure. I imagine there probably aren't many people who sit down pen to paper anymore with the convenience of the digital option, or would I be wrong? Do you know?
I feel like most of my peers are definitely all digital, at least. And I mean, I think a lot of them, even if they do pen and ink, they're still kind of finishing it in Photoshop, either with colors or lettering and stuff like that. So it's a hybrid.
Wow. Always wanted to try that, but it just seems like an expensive thing just to try out. I don't know how good I would be. I mean, I'm not good drawing regardless, but how good I could control it. I guess there's just something you got to get used to,
Yeah, well, I think what people are surprised because when I draw digitally, I actually don't. So there's like the Wacom, which has the screen and you draw like 1-to-1 right on it. But I grew up using the one where it's a tablet that lies kind of on your desk and you're looking at a screen. And that's how I draw. So it's kind of weird to go back to like a traditional medium because it's so different from looking where you're not drawing, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So cool. I'm very jealous of people who can do what you do. But you've also done work with Dark Horse, Vault Comics, and Boom Studios. Can you talk a little bit about what you did with them?
Yeah, so I've done a bunch of kind of short comics with Dark Horse. I was the artist for a bunch of their like mini series for The Legend of Korra. Like they had a free comics book day one that they ran with that. I've done another short story with that series as well. And I have a book coming out called Loving Ohio, which is published with Dark Horse. That's coming out in August. The writer is Matthew Ehrman, and Loving Ohio, if I can pitch it to all of you, because I think you guys are in Ohio, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So Loving Ohio is a horror comic. It's about a cult in Ohio that may or may not be killing teenagers. And it kind of revolves around Sloane and her friends as they try to uncover the mystery of why her boyfriend died, how it's tied to these cults. And there's also kind of this supernatural entity that's terrorizing them as well. It's really fantastic. It's very different from all the other work I've done. I'm super proud of it.
It sounds awesome.
It's
When's that coming out?
That comes out this year in August.
In August. You said that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
it
say,
definitely
Randy?
sounds. I said you definitely made it make Ohio sound a lot more interesting than it actually is. So.
I don't know anything about Ohio, but the writer Matthew is from there, so it's a very kind of like close story to him.
Corn, just
yeah.
corn.
One of the funniest things was he would give me kind of like locations and references, and I would basically just go into Google Maps and be like the hugest creep and just like Google Maps around like the streets of Columbus, Ohio to like find reference images, which was really fun. It's like a great way to kind of immerse yourself without going to Ohio or wherever.
Yeah.
You know why that version is fun is because you can turn it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you find any landmarks in Columbus that you guys wanted to use a reference?
I don't think there was I don't even remember now. There's a river, I think, in one of like the first few pages, and fuck me if I remember the name. I don't know. A lot of the landmarks were more like, let me look at these houses and this strip mall, which sounds super boring and mundane, but like when you're looking at it from this artistic point of view, it can be really fascinating to kind of draw and like catalog the most mundane architecture. I find it kind of interesting.
Mundane.
That's a great word for that.
Perfect adjective.
Especially for some of the strip malls here.
Yeah, it's like a totally different like mundane aesthetic than like the strip malls and suburbs in Toronto. Like it just looks different. So it's really cool to kind of see the difference between suburbs and strip malls and plazas and like all of that.
Sure. I'm curious. What kind of differences are you talking about?
I don't know. They just look different. Like something I can't describe it. Like they just have different types of like building architecture. I don't know. I feel like the stuff I was seeing while I was creeping around Ohio was a lot more like smaller kind of single homes, whereas here, at least in the like suburbs I grew up in, they're a bit newer looking. I think they were built more recently. I don't know.
You can say it, Sam. Dumpy.
Smaller trees. Like,
it looks dumpy.
But it looks cool. Like I really enjoyed drawing that comic for that reason.
It's like when someone makes a sculpture out of garbage, you know? It's like there's art in that garbage. I'm kidding. Columbus isn't that bad. There are certainly worse places to be, but I don't know. It's just kind of fun to sit here and talk shit about it sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes.
I am excited to see that, though. You're probably not allowed to say what kind of... I don't know if the cryptic or the entity that's in the book is based off any like actual Ohio lore. I would imagine it probably is.
If it is, Matthew didn't explicitly tell me so. I can tell you what it is because he shows up almost in the first page. He's like a man in just like this like white collared t-shirt, cargo pants, the most like basic looking guy ever, but he has really creepy arms and limbs and they multiply and it gets weird.
The new cryptid, Ohio Chad.
Yeah.
Ohio Chad. I thought she was going to say the Wendigo or something, but I like this.
No.
I like this better.
It's like, yeah.
Ohio Chad beats the Loveland Frog any day.
He has one of those puffy vests with a collar button-up shirt and tie underneath.
Yep.
Or the man cow or whatever that is.
What?
Is it the man cow or something like that?
No, that's Marion. That's farther north.
You're thinking of man bear pig.
Oh yeah.
Anyway.
See, Sam's over there like, what did I get into?
Yeah, we're losing our guest. Veer it back, boys. Veer it back. All right. You'll have to let us know when that comes out because you can come back on. We can talk more about it, without worrying about spoiling too much because that does sound awesome. And I have a feeling...
I'm sure the writer would love to talk about it also. So
sure.
I'm happy that I know you guys are in Ohio now. There's a connection. It's good.
Yeah, absolutely. So
yeah, we can verify the authenticity of the places used.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk a little bit about verse, because I got to read this and I was sucked in. And I'm not just saying that to kiss ass or brown nose. I mean that because typically when I sit down, when we're going to have someone on that's created comics, I typically just leaf through the first few pages, kind of get a feel for what's going on, which is what I intended to do here. But I got hooked and ended up reading all of book one. It was fantastic. Love it. And I intend on reading on to find out what happens. But can you, Fife and what is her name? I can't pronounce it. I don't know how to pronounce it. Neitya?
Nitya.
Nitya.
Yeah, it's an Indian name, but I spelled it kind of strangely. My husband's from India, and when he saw how I spelled it, he's like, "Why would you do it like that?" I'm like, "It looks cool." I'm sorry.
It does look cool. It just it threw me off, but it was really good. Bravo to you. But can you tell our
Thank you.
listeners and us more about it?
Yes, I can give kind of the elevator pitch. So Verse is a fantasy comic. It's a YA comic, young adult comic. It's set in a world where magic is feared, and the only things that know how to use magic are these monsters known as the Vel. That's what Fife, who's one of the main characters, believes, at least, until he discovers this young girl named Nitya, who has strange powers, kind of looks like the Vel, and really turns his whole worldview on its head. If you're a fan of like big ensemble casts of characters with a lot of feelings, of kind of these like expansive journeying stories, then versus a comic that you probably like.
I would agree. And this has to be an idea that you've been probably sitting on for some time. It seems like this wasn't a quick idea.
Yeah, so when I left my graphic design job, I immediately started working on Verse, and this was now like 6 years ago. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's been in my brain for a really long time. It started out as a web comic, which book one and part of book two is actually online, free to read right now. And there's three parts of book three comes out in August as well this year. But yeah, I just like wanted to do a fantasy novel. That's kind of my favorite genre. I've always been drawn to kind of building up a world and like placing my little guys in it and seeing how they react to the world around them. Yeah, I was gonna say like it sat in my notebook for maybe like 2 years before I started even drawing it or anything like that.
Wow.
So as you're developing the story, did you have kind of like a start and an end in mind, or is it just kind of like built on itself to keep going?
Yes, that's a great question. So because it started out as a web comic, it had, like the first third of it kind of figured out, and I knew eventually where I wanted it to go, but it was, the vaguest sense of the ending. So really doing a web comic, it was like being on a train and like building the tracks as the train is moving for a lot of it. So like it would release weekly, and the story it gave a lot of flexibility to the story and let it evolve without being too constrained by anything that was like really set in stone. And I think on one hand, that was really nice as the first project I got into. It let me learn a lot as I was drawing it. If I were to do it again, I would want to have something a lot more structured to go with, because you kind of get to a point where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I'm not sure where this is going. I've thought of something much better. And I think the story would have been structured a lot more differently if I had planned it out from like start to the end. But that's how it is.
I would imagine. I was just going to say, I would imagine each way you go, though, you're going to find limitations. You know what I mean? Like you were saying a little bit ago, if you were to nail down exactly how it's going to end, you put up too broad of a template you've got to work within. Does that make sense?
Yeah. There's pros and cons to both of it. Like you can have like a really like bulletproof plan and like stick to it, but you might find as you're drawing, especially with verse, because it's so long, that you've like really like built yourself into a corner and you don't like where it's gone, but now there's nowhere to
For it
go
to
or
go,
to change it. Yeah. So it started off as a web comic. Book one I kickstarted in 2019, like went around to a bunch of conventions with it, and that's where um, Vault actually, one of the editors from Vault, found it at one of these conventions and decided to pick it up to be published by them for books 2 and 3. So that was really
That's
fantastic.
exciting.
It's
Yeah.
really nice to be paid to work on something that you love so much. And kind of it happened at like an early point in my career, which I'm like, yeah, this is great. I can do this full time now. I don't have to worry about going back to my day job or anything.
Hmm. Boy, I wish I knew that feeling. Damn show. But you deserve it because the book is great. Not only the story, but the artwork is fantastic. There's doing the face is so freaking difficult for even some of the best artists. And one thing I noticed in your book is you really nailed like the subtle but like integral expressions of the moment. Like you nailed them perfectly. Like you can just see their face, know exactly what's in their mind. And does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm truly so flattered that you said that because drawing faces is my favorite thing. I think a lot of that comes from my love of like manga and anime, where like
Right.
you'll have just a whole panel will just be like the face of the character. So it's really important to me. Like first, even though there's a ton of like world building and backgrounds and stuff like that, like at its heart, it really is about the characters. So like being able to express their emotions and like really like nuanced emotions as well is really important to me. So I'm so happy you think that.
It was noticeable in several spots, and that was again. I only have read book one, but another thing that really caught my attention too was there was a point where uh, this isn't so much a spoiler. I'm just kind of describing one of the moments where Bronca is reading Magdalena's research, and Magdalena's talking, and her words as they start to circle Bronca start to blur out. Like you can tell that she's hearing her, but she's not hearing a damn thing she's saying just because of what she's reading. Like that was very cool. I think there was another moment where you've may have used a similar kind of idea, but I really dug that.
Yeah, thanks. It comes up a bunch in book 2 as well. I like like I don't think I'm like the best letterer. Like first I did everything like inks, colors, lettering, all of it. So I don't play around with it a ton, but in that specific example, I wanted to do something interesting and like there just wasn't a good way to do that without messing around with the lettering and kind of blurring it out. So it was fun to be able to do that.
Worked very well. Have you ever thought about animation at all? Doing animation? I mean, your artwork is animation quality.
I've never thought about it. A lot of my peers have backgrounds in animation, but I don't know. I've never it's never been something that's come up. I feel like it's very meticulous, and I'm not good at that.
Mm,
I don't know how to describe it. Like comics, I feel like is really free, and you don't have to draw the same thing. Oh no,
sure.
I was gonna say draw the same thing over and over again, but that's exactly what you do in comics a lot of the time. So I don't know what I'm saying.
And I'm not.
I don't think it ever came up in my mind.
Yeah, I'm not sitting here being like, "What are you doing, wasting your time with comics? You should be doing animation." No, I'm just
Listen,
saying that-
kid.
Yeah, based on your artwork, it looks like, especially saying, a lot of the inspiration comes from manga. It seems like you could have already had a career in animation at one point. Like it's really good. I mean, I'll quit kissing your ass. I'm sorry. I hope that's not making you uncomfortable. But the point I'm trying to make is that it's good. Check it out, people. And like she was saying on versecomic.com, you can read the first book and part of the second book for free. And you can also purchase the physicals there if you want them as well.
Yeah. Yeah. A kind of a really important thing was because it started out as a webcomic, despite bulk picking it up to be published. It kind of went offline for a couple of years because they wanted to sell books, understandable. Sure. But I kind of always wanted to bring it back online. I think webcomics are really special. It's kind of, there's no gatekeeping. You can have any kind of story you want. They're super interesting. I think webcomics are amazing, and they're usually free to read. So why not?
We used to have so many people on the show who made webcomics over the year, but it seems like, and maybe it's just the amount of webcomic people reaching out has gone down, but I don't know if the people doing webcomics, like the amount of people has dropped off like after COVID, because you know how COVID just kind of fucked everything up for everybody.
Maybe that's part of it. I think one part of it also is now when people say webcomics, they think of things like Webtoons and Tapas, which are huge sites where they have, like really well-produced comics, which at the end of the day just makes it like a publisher again. So a lot of people aren't kind of interested in building their own sites to host their own comics. And kind of give up a bit of that freedom to have it on things like Webtoons, which does have a big kind of audience reach, but you lose some of the freedom of just, wild west of being on the internet, not having any rules or anything.
Sure.
It's the same way with podcasting. You can do whatever you want. And, I guess there are networks or people who would gladly sponsor you, but they want to then put limitations around you, and it's just not worth it. It's just too fun and too easy just to be able to say, you know what, I'm not posting anything this week. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
But you mentioned earlier con appearances. Are you still very active in going to conventions?
COVID was like 3 years, so no. No. I was super active in 2019. I haven't really been back to any recently. I'd love to attend some kind of in the summer and next year once Loving Ohio and once Verse Book 3 is out, because I think conventions are a really great way to meet fans, just to like talk to people who are interested in comics, interested in your work. So I do miss them and hope I can attend some in 2025, I guess.
Well, if you happen to be in Ohio, let us know. We'll come out and see you. I think I interrupted somebody.
I was just going to ask, so once you've got your trilogy completed, are you planning on any type of spin-offs? Or are you toyed around with that idea, or?
No. So book 3 has been done for about a year now. There was like a bit of stuff that happened where it was delayed. So it's been done for quite a while, and so happy that I got the chance to do like 3 books. That's like an insane thing for like a first time creator to even get the chance to do that. But I never want to see that comic again. I want to do something else. Okay.
You're done. Away from me.
Yeah. It's special. It'll be in my heart forever. But I'm just like, it was such a kind of roller coaster of a process that I'm like, close the book on it, put it away, happy it's there.
She kills absolutely everyone off to make sure even if she wants to, she can't come back to it.
Yeah.
That's like when we do our special projects. We're all excited until we're done, and then we're like, all right, well, we'll never do that.
Yeah. At least we tried it, though, and we have this have it on tape.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, my God. Did you guys have any more questions?
I think all mine got answered.
Well, here's one for you, Sam. And I read online that you can play the guitar in the ocarina.
Not well.
Oh,
together?
Those were very much COVID projects. I have to say that in full honesty. And stuck in the house, I'm like, I'm going to learn some instruments. So both are collecting dust. And like, I've probably forgotten how to play them. But I think an ocarina is a very cool instrument.
Damn.
Maybe not to my apartment neighbors, but like it is very fun.
Are they very loud? Are they a loud instrument?
Have you ever heard like a recorder if you have children and they like bring it home and it's just like a piercing, shrill noise?
Yeah.
That's kind of what they're like.
So it sounds good if you know how to play. Otherwise, it's just Yeah.
It's like
Cats and heat.
on social media memes and stuff. Have you ever heard anyone play the Jurassic Park theme with the recorder? It sounds
That the Titanic theme.
Oh, that Titanic, yeah. That was another. Oh, that was funny. Yeah, I was going to ask, I was going to like tell you like don't feel any pressure. I was going to ask if you could play a few notes, but it sounds if you're saying there's dust on it, I'm not going to.
No, it would be no one would listen to this episode. It would ruin it.
Well, we're at the end, so like we've already got them, you know.
No, okay.
Yeah.
We've already got the download and the statistic. What'd you say, Randy?
I was just gonna say, hey, they've heard me sing before. It can't be any worse than that.
It really can't.
No, not at all.
Thanks for the sympathy, guys.
You're not getting any sympathy. We should be the ones that need.
Nope.
We get the sympathy. We had to fucking listen to it.
Fair.
Well, Sam, I want to thank you so much for being here today. This has been a blast. Unless you have anything else you want to talk about, I know you've got a slew of other books you've done over the years, right?
Yeah, I can. So I've done Songs of the Necromancer. It's a fantasy comic. There's 2 kind of like trade editions of it. I think so, like 8 comics. If you're into fantasy, especially like kind of a more like Dungeons and Dragons type of vibe, I think that's a really good one for that. It's about a bard who is this like really sweet, innocent girl, but she's a necromancer as well.
Ooh.
And she meets up with this swords lady who's very like stoic and totally not cool with her doing necromancy, but they go on an adventure together. I've done the artwork for a comic called Renegade Rule by Ben Kahn and Rachel Silverstein, and that one is about gamer girls who are competing in this like VR competition similar to like not Fortnite. There was another popular one anyway. They compete in it. That was a really fun comic to do. I think Ben and Rachel are extremely funny writers. I loved working with them on that. And then there's Verse. Loving Ohio comes out in August. And one thing I hope to get back into is doing a lot of kind of smaller, like 30-page comics. A lot of them are free on my website as well. Terrible kind of salesperson. I just put everything online at the end of the day.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing. Like when you go to a comic shop, you just don't see something, you don't buy something based on just the cover. You pick it up, you flip it open, you take a look at it. You're like, okay, I dig this. I want to own it. And I think that's what you're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hope that's how people think about it.
I would certainly hope so. I didn't realize there were other books on there to check out. I'll have to look at that. I was only looking at Verse.
Yeah, my website is sambeck.ca. And yeah, there's a couple of kind of like really short comics. They're like adaptations of books that have been in the public domain for a long time, like Ovid's Metamorphosis. There's like a short story from that. There's some other one about, I think it's called, the writer's like Lord Welleran. It's super like from the 1800s, but it's this short story about a guy who basically falls off a boat, drowns, and has a near-death experience, and like sees his whole childhood flash before his eyes. And I just thought it was really beautifully written, so I adapted that into a really short black and white comic.
That sounds cool as hell.
Yeah.
Nice.
A lot of them I did kind of when I left my job and was just kind of exploring comics as a medium. I didn't want to commit to anything really big.
Right.
So I did a lot of these like short ones just to kind of find my footing before jumping into Verse.
And you've done all of this in 6 years.
About, yeah, give or take a few years.
That's incredible. That is incredible. It's been 10 years and we've only got this one show.
Oh, you want more?
No, I don't. Tried that. My point being is just the list of work you've done in that short amount of time is incredible.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
I think I've just been, thank you. I think I've just been really lucky. Like, obviously there's like a lot of work that goes into it, but I don't know. I'm just really happy I can do this full time. I never expected that this would happen, but going strong at 6 years, and like I hope I can just continue making comics.
Yeah. Well, if you're
Much
doing this
longer,
good
yeah.
at 6 years in, then I'd say that's exactly what's going to be happening. I mean, luck can only take you so far. Talent takes you the rest of the way, and you've got it. These are good books. And I recommend people go to versecomic.com, check them out, even pick up a few physical copies for yourself. But Sam, thank you so much for being here. This has been awesome to hang out with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been really great talking to all of you.
We'll have to do it again. Let's hook up in August. Did you say volume 3 is coming out in August as well?
They almost come out on the exact same day. Didn't plan it. Volume 3 comes out in August, and then Loving Ohio also like the same week. So
wow,
that'll be exciting.
Randy, mark it on the calculator.
Yep.
Or shit, not the calculator, the calendar. We'll forget it if we put it on the calculator.
I'll just stick it in the sun and hope the batteries don't burn out between them.
Well, thanks so much again, Sam and Jack. What do we have on the website, sir?
Go to cannedairpodcast.com where you can listen, like, follow, subscribe, follow us on all our social media, buy some merch, become a patron, see some YouTube videos, and if you'd like to be a guest and promote your work, send us an email on our contacts page.
Thought we were going to lose you there for a second. You got a little laggy.
I thought so too. Oh, really? And my internet today, man.
I mean, not laggy enough to where I'm not going to use it. I'm just saying you've been popping in and out during the whole conversation. I was
Right.
like, oh, there he goes again. Oh.
Change the hamster out, Jack.
Yeah.
And don't forget to find us on Twitter at CannedAirPod, on Instagram at canned_air, and on TikTok at CannedAirPodcast. And the website Jack was just talking about, CannedAirPodcast.com. Once again, merch tab, Patreon tab, ways to support us, get something in return. And to all of our people who are listening to the audio version, check out our YouTube page. A lot more going on over there. And if you've only known us from YouTube, check out our audio catalog spanning over a decade on Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere you find podcasts. And Randy, what else we got?
And wherever you listen to us, give us a like and review. It helps so much. And huge shout out to evergreenpodcast.com.
There it is in a nice little package. So until next time, I am Jeremy Colley.
I'm Jack Doherty.
I'm Randy Hardenbrook.
I'm Sam Beck.
Thank you so much for listening, everyone. Be excellent to each other.